While the smell is usually apparent right away, at least one couple slept on a mattress containing a body in Atlantic City in 1999. What's more, a fair number of them are only discovered days later after the new tenant complains about a persistent or disagreeable odor. If I've been living in a fucking hotel room for any amount of time, and I come in and go, oh, bit of a funk in here. What's that about? And it turned out to be a dead body. Weird but Wonderful, a journey into the minds of strange people doing strange things. I'm James, and on each episode of this show, we wade into the waters of the human psyche, from cult leaders to Craigslist creeps, trying to figure out what drives people to act on the weirdest parts of themselves and whether or not any of us are really as normal as we think. And today might be a very particular display of how people aren't normal, but when I was 10 years old, I saw a movie called Urban Legends. And for those who aren't familiar, the opening of the movie, it's a woman driving alone along a long stretch of highway, heavy downpour, it's raining, and she needs gas. So she pulls into this dingy looking gas station, has this really scary, weird interaction with the attendant at the gas station. He has a stutter, so he can't quite get his words out. She hands her card to him through a cracked, car window. He goes inside, comes back, and he's like, hey, credit card company's on the phone for you. They're going to talk to you or whatever. You got to come inside. Except that when she goes inside and picks up the phone, it's dead. She thinks this guy's trying to attack her. So she knocks him down, gets away, gets back to her car, drives off into the rain as he runs out into the rain. She's out of earshot now, and he yells out, someone's in the back seat. She doesn't hear him. Shadowed figure rises up from the back seat, axe to the head, car rolls to a stop. Terrified 10-year-old James watching this, and it caused me to actually check the backseat of every car I got into for at least a year. I am ashamed to say probably a lot longer, but needless to say, urban legends, terrifying and have an impact on us in the real world, me. So today I thought we'd dig into some of the most popular urban legends and where they came from and why they stick around. And for the uninitiated, you might be thinking, James, what the fuck? What the fuck even is an urban legend? I was born after the year 2000. I don't know what an urban legend is. To which I would say, needlessly cruel reminder of the passage of time. I'd ask you to please not. Thank you. Urban legends are modern folklore, unverified stories passed from person to person, often claiming to be true or, and my personal favorite, claiming to have happened to a friend of mine. That's a great one. They're usually pretty short, tap into collective fears or concerns of the time, and they're usually set in everyday settings like suburban homes, servos, highways. They're really trying to ground them in places that make them feel more real and plausible. Some urban legends are warnings, like check your back seat. 10-year-old James urges you. Just give it a glance, okay? Is there a man in there with an axe? If yes, then don't get in car, pretty obvious. And others add to the lore of a place like the Bunnyman Bridge. That's the one in Fairfax County, Virginia. The Bunnyman Bridge is supposed to be haunted by an axe-wielding ghost of an escaped asylum patient in a rabbit costume who murdered teens near the bridge on Halloween. And other urban legends reflect social anxieties about crime, technology, or things that are unknown to us. They tend to evolve from culture shifting, from stories shared amongst friends, or even email chains and now TikTok stories. But do you remember those chain letters or emails? It's just a vintage as fuck. And if you break the chain, it would be send this to 5 friends by this date or whatever. Otherwise, a man will appear at the end of your bed tonight and kill you. I think I definitely would have at some point participated in a chain email version of that, which had to just be a data collection scam or something. But the best urban legends leave you glancing over your shoulder and wondering if it might just be true. I mentioned the Bunnyman urban legend in Fairfax County, Virginia, for the Bunnyman Bridge. The Bunnyman is an urban legend that originated from 2 real incidences in Fairfax County, Virginia in 1970, but has spread throughout the Washington, D.C., and Maryland areas. The legend has many variations. Most involve a man wearing a rabbit costume who attacks people with an axe or hatchet. Fairfax County Public Library historian archivist Brian A. Conley extensively researched the Bunnyman legend. He has located 2 incidences of a man in a rabbit costume threatening people with an axe. The vandalism reports occurred 10 days apart in 1970 in Burke, Virginia. The first incident was reported on the evening of October 19th, 1970, by the U.S. Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée, who were visiting relatives on Guinea Road in Burke. Around midnight, while returning from a football game, they reportedly parked their car in a field on Guinea Road to visit an uncle who lived across the street from where the car was parked. As they sat in the front seat with the motor running, they noticed something moving outside the rear window. Moments later, a man dressed in a white suit with long bunny ears ran out from the nearby bushes and began shouting, "You're on private property and I have your tag." The man then threw a hatchet through the passenger side window of the vehicle before running away. Bennett and his fiancée fled the scene. Both were uninjured, with the hatchet that was thrown remaining among the floorboards inside the vehicle. Local police obtained the hatchet and examined, but with no other clues or leads, the hatchet was returned to Bennett. Oh, yes, you can, the weapon that the man threw at you, you can have that back. Enjoy. An investigation was launched, but with no leads, it was eventually closed. So not the guy whose property they were parked on then. Hey, 2 questions. Do you happen to have a white suit with bunny ears? And second question, are you missing a hatchet? When the police requested a description of the man, Bennett insisted he was wearing a white suit with long bunny ears. However, Bennett's fiancée contested that their assailant did not have bunny ears on his head, but was wearing a white caporet of some sort. They both remembered seeing his face clearly, but in the darkness, they could not determine his race. The second reported sighting occurred on the evening of October 31st, 1970, our favorite night, the spookiest night of all time, when construction security guard Paul Phillips approached a man standing on the porch of an unfinished/unoccupied home in Kings Park West on Guinea Road. Phillips said the man was wearing a grey, black, and white bunny costume and was about 20 years old, 5 feet 8 inches tall, and weighed about 175 pounds. Phillips said in a statement, quote, "I started talking to him, but that's when he started chopping. The man began chopping at the porch post with a long-handled axe, with some reports saying 8 gashes were struck into the pole. The man then said, quote, 'All you people trespass around here, and you're trespassing. If you come any closer, I'll chop off your head.' Phillips then left the house to go to his car to retrieve his handgun. By the time Phillips returned, the rabbit ran off into the woods." I like saying, the rabbit man ran off into the woods. Fairfax County Police opened investigations into both incidences, but were both eventually closed for lack of evidence. The case was eventually handed over to W.L. Johnson of the Criminal Investigation Bureau. In the weeks following the incidents, more than 50 people contacted the police claiming to have seen the Bunny Man. Several newspapers, including the Washington Post, reported that the Bunny Man had eaten a man's runaway cat. Many people called Johnson, claiming to have information about the whereabouts or the identity of the Bunny Man, with most of those being prank calls at school children creating rumors. Johnson allegedly received a phone call from a construction work in the subdivision where the Bunny Man was last seen. The worker stated that he was called by someone referring to themselves as the Axe Man. The Axe Man said, quote, "You've been messing up my property, but dumping tree stumps, limbs, and brush and other things on the property. You can make everything right by meeting me tonight and talking about the situation." That's cool. That's cool. We can talk about it in the day at the police station. In 1973, a student catalogued 54 versions of the story, some adding invented murders. And then in 1999, a widely spread online version claimed the Bunny Man was an escaped convict, Douglas J. Griffin, who haunted Bunnyman Bridge and committed supernatural killings. So the Bunnyman legend originally rooted in 2 vandalism threat incidents, they call them, and through rumor, media, and internet retellings, it ballooned into a full-blown urban legend with gruesome false backstories. That's exactly what the ghost of a haunted bridge would want you to think, okay? It's safe, come on through. Find out. I did want to jump into the first urban legend that I remember torturing me as a child, which was the killer in the back seat, and getting into, where that came from. But this morning I found this article about terrifying urban legends that turned out to be true. And one really stood out to me here, which I thought was fucking terrifying. The body under the bed. Vacationing couples, newlyweds, Disneyland guests, all have been subject of an urban legend involving hotel occupants who fall blissfully to sleep only to wake up to an awful stench coming from either under the bed or inside the mattress. Closer inspection reveals that a dead body has been stashed away, presumably not anyone who has died of natural causes. Yes, we can safely, oh my God, this person stabbed themselves 9 times and then climbed inside of a mattress? Yeah, we get that it might not have been natural causes. Oh, he fell down an elevator shaft and landed on 6 bullets. This traveling tale has been confirmed multiple times. At least a dozen newspaper stories have detailed hotel rooms that have doubled as body disposal sites. While the smell is usually apparent right away, at least one couple slept on a mattress containing a body in Atlantic City in 1999. Cases in Colorado, Florida, and Virginia have also been reported. Okay. Dead bodies get stashed in the box spring or the bed's pedestal more often than you'd want to believe. Is it none? Is it more than none? Dude. And you know that, like, what's the first thing you do when you get into a hotel room? You crank that aircon down to the lowest setting they've got. And you live in an icebox. Is that just me? I think that's a fairly universal experience. You crank that AC down. I want to live in an icebox. Maybe a great environment to stash something that needs to remain cold. Is that the thinking? What's more, a fair number of them are only discovered days later after the new tenant complains about a persistent or disagreeable odor. Dog, if I'm in a hotel room and I'm like, that's weird. Oh, we went out for dinner and we came back, and you know when you don't smell a smell until you sort of re-enter the space, and your nose, because you've like adjusted to the space or whatever, and so your nose is kind of like re-smelling it for the first time. If I've been living in a fucking hotel room for any amount of time, and I come in and go, bit of a funk in here. What's that about? And it turned out to be a dead body. I don't know how I'd handle I don't know how I would handle that. Seriously, if I had touched anything, some stuff don't wash out, and I would just feel like I have corpse stink inside of me now. I gotta stop watching horror movies, dude. In each of the following cases, not only were bodies discovered under hotel beds, but it was investigations of the smell of decomposition that led to their discoveries. Don't tell me that! What's that pungent smell coming from inside of my mattress? You know how like it seems like basically every year, there's at least some point when, I haven't watched the news in a really long time, but there always seems to be a point where there's like a lull in the news and they're like, another blacklight story in a hotel room. And they're like, yeah, sure, let's do that. Oh yeah, some staining here that seems to, leading back to corpse in the bed. On July 10, 2003, a man checked into the Capri Motel just east of downtown Kansas City and began complaining about a foul odor in his room. Management told him nothing could be done about the problem, and he spent 3 nights in his room before checking out because he could no longer stand the smell. 3 nights. There is something so... Just sit with that for a second. You are tonight, you go, I'm going to go into my bed, and you get into your bed and you find out you had been sleeping directly on top of a corpse. Okay. Okay, sorry. I went somewhere there and it wasn't to a good place. When the cleaning staff came in to make up the room on the 13th of July, they lifted the mattress and underneath found a man's body in an advanced stage of decomposition. What if you'd have been like, oh, my back's killing me too. Oh, man, I'll tell you what. That Capri Motel in downtown Kansas City, that did a number on me. Stinky room, but like the main problem for me really is that my back is sore. Lumpy mattress. Corpse in the mattress. That's a 1-star. That's a 1-star review from me. Weird funk. Service also not great. You know why? Because the guy was like, hey, my fucking room smells like something's dead in it. And they were like, nothing we can do about it. I think like cleaning rooms is that's definitely a service that I've seen provided in hotels before. So I think it is within your capability to do something. But okay. On June 10, 1999, the rapidly decomposing remains of 64-year-old Saul Hernandez were discovered inside the bed in room 112 at the Burgundy Motor Inn in Atlantic City, New Jersey. A German couple had spent the night sleeping over Hernandez's remains, and it was their complaint to the manager about the smell in their room which led to the discovery of the corpse. In July 1996, a woman's body was found under a mattress in Colorado Boulevard Travel Lodge in Pasadena. Apparently, the motel staff discovered her 10 days after her demise, and only after guests had complained for several days of a foul odor coming from a room. I think the PSA takeaway from this is if there is a funk in your hotel room, get out now, get out immediately. Any form of funk. There were 2 stashed and smelly body cases in Florida in 1994. It's a strange way to describe that. 2 corpses found. Oh, you mean 2 stashed and PU bodies? Yeah, 2 corpses. Yes, it's what I meant. Further adding to the confusability of these stories taking place in the same year and same state, in both instances, the next tenants those rooms had were German tourists. In August 1994, in Fort Lauderdale, hotel staff discovered the body of a 47-year-old Brian Gregory tucked under a platform bed. Though the staff had themselves noticed the strange smell for days, they only set about looking for the source after a German couple spent the night in that room and afterwards complained about the odor. The hotel staff knew that it stunk in there, couldn't figure out the funk, rented it out anyway. Oh, whoops. Body in the fucking bed. I'd be so pissed. In March 1994, the body of a 24-year-old Josefina Martinez was found underneath a bed at the Travelers Hotel near Miami International Airport. Again, the discovery was prompted after an aggrieved German tourist upset about a foul odor in his room. Why are they all German tourists discovering these bodies? Probably just like, that's that, like, what is that? Correlation does not equal causation. It's probably just like a popular place that German tourists go to. There are so many of these cases, right? Then there was this other one in 2010. Guests at a budget lodge in Memphis were horrified to discover that they'd been sleeping above the body of Sonny Millbrook. This is Memphis, Tennessee. James and Rhonda Sargent never dreamed they were sleeping on a tomb. They rented room 222 at the budget lodge 2 days after Sonny Millbrook was reported missing January 27th. Her body was found March 15th under the bed where the sergeant slept. The couple said they told motel staff the room was stanky and foul. They burned incense but said nothing could cover the odor, although someone apparently had tried because the sergeants noticed there was fabric softener sheets stuffed in the ceiling tiles and nooks. The smell was the strongest when someone sat on the bed. Don't say that. Don't say that. Oh, when you sit on the bed, you know how like if you like whack your couch or whatever, you haven't like vacuumed it recently, you might get like a dust, like a mild dust plume. Dust plume. You get what I mean. Okay. Oh, we sat on the bed and this like weird, like ploofy, like plume just came out. And it fucking reeks, dude. But I don't know what it is. I don't know where the stink's coming from. But we did try to incense the room to what? Like, that's doing, what I like about that, no, I'm thinking of saging. I would have saged it to do like a double, cover the stink, cover the BVs, the bad vibes, you know. Detectives from the Memphis Police Department's Missing Persons Unit visited the motel January 29th, but failed to enter room 222, where Millbrook had been staying for weeks with her children and Lakeith Moody, the father of the 4 of her 5 children. The police went to the motel that this missing person was staying at, but didn't check the room that the missing person stayed in. Okay, cool. Millbrook's family reported her missing when she didn't pick up the kids from school. Police believe she died the day she vanished. She was reported missing in January 27th. Her body was found March 15th under the bed. Police were told motel workers had bagged up Millbrook's personal belongings and cleaned the room. The workers said nothing appeared amiss and the room was rented out. What? The sergeant said, basically, if the police had wanted to come in, they would have been happy to let them in, but they didn't. Sorry, within the week, the Missing Persons Unit handed the case to homicide detectives. They went to the hotel on February 4th, missing January 27th, Missing Persons Unit, February 4th. Room 222 had been cleaned out and rented out at least 3 times since Millbrook was last seen. Again, police didn't go into the room, but they questioned motel employees about whether there was anything unusual in the room. Anything weird? Anything amiss going on in there? No, just stanky foul smell like the stink of a corpse. But no, just got her stuff and no, nothing strange. Sergeant said, we went down there every day and told them how stinky the room was. No one from the budget lodge would comment. Millbrook's body was underneath a king-size mattress and box spring in a box. Moody vanished the same day Millbrook did. On the 3rd day of their stay at the budget lodge, the sergeants insisted that they be moved out of the room. They stayed at another hotel for about a week and then returned to the budget lodge on February 7th because it was more affordable. They moved among 3 rooms. When they returned, they said spending 1 more night in room 222. The fabric softener sheets were still stuffed in the ceiling tiles and nooks around the room to mask the odor. Dude. Hey, this room stinks so bad, we've got to get out. We just have to go to a different hotel. I mean, you know, this place is nice, but it's pretty expensive. And I mean, that other place was stinky, but it was a lot cheaper. So I don't know, maybe we just go back to the exact same room that we had a problem with. That still stinks, by the way. Moody was stopped while driving Millbrook's car a few weeks later. He is in detention on federal charges of being a felon in possession of a gun. The Memphis Police Department is launching an internal investigation to determine if mistakes were made in how the case was handled. Fucking probably. The court eventually convicted Millbrook's boyfriend, Lakeith Moody, of the crime. Wow. So that's the body under the bed. We're learning some like rules today, right? Check the back seat. That's number 1. Okay, check the back seat of your car. You want to do that. The next one you're going to want to do is look under the bed. Oh, God. For 2 reasons. Because 1, could be a killer under there or could be a killed under there. So, also if a hotel room stinks, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out immediately. It's a body. It's a body. New heuristic. All right. Does hotel room stink? If yes, corpse. And we lock that one away. Okay. And now that's a new rule that we live by. Perfect. The same article mentions the Bunnyman killer, or the legend of the Bunnyman. If you lived in or around Virginia in the 1970s, you were probably exposed to the story of the Bunnyman. In the tale, an escaped mental patient takes to gutting bunnies and hanging them from a bridge underpass. Later, the man is said to have graduated to gutting and hanging teens in a similar manner. Didn't shift the name, though. You know, to the legend of the Teen Man. Doesn't work, does it? Not as terrifying. The Bunny Man also not very terrifying. But the Teen Man, too silly, you know? The Bunny Man also very silly. It's neither here nor there. I've been yapping for a long time now about this. I did have a bunch of other, I've got the hook-handed killer, the babysitter and the man upstairs, the hand lick, but maybe we'll do those in another episode. I do want to get to the killer in the backseat, which is basically the legend tells the story of a woman driving alone at night. She's being followed by another car. This is another version of the story that I've heard. The trailing driver repeatedly flashes their high beams or acts erratically. Frightened, the woman seeks help, most often at a gas station, only to discover that there's a murderous stranger hiding in the backseat all along, and the stalker driving behind them, flashing their lights, was a good Samaritan trying to warn her each time the killer rose up to attack. I've also heard other ones about it being like a gang initiation, someone flashing their high beams or, something, and then if you arc up or engage in some way, they kill you or something. So the earliest known versions of the killer in the backseat date back to the mid-1960s. The first academic note comes from 1965 to 1968 folklore collections at Indiana University. Couple of Indianimals, couple of Hoosiers. In the early tellings, the protagonist was often a woman driving who only learns of the hidden assailant when a truck driver follows her home and alerts her family. One 1960s version ends with the trucker explaining, "I just wanted to tell your wife there is a man in the backseat of the car." Thinking about this now, if I was driving behind someone and just saw, a person driving in a car and then someone sit up in the backseat, I wouldn't think, "Oh my God, killer in the backseat." Wouldn't you just assume passenger, friend, family member? Context pretty important here. I mean, if I saw a silhouette rise up holding an axe, then I would probably think, oh, maybe killer in the back, But just person rise up. "Oh, sir, I just wanted to let you know, I'm a truck driver. I followed your wife all the way home, and I'm not the weird one. Someone was in the back seat of that car." Yeah, it was our son. Oh, okay. Well, sorry about the intrusion then. Hey, why was your son wielding a double-edged axe? Hey, it was so weird. Every time your son rose up, I thought he was like holding like a butcher's knife. Strange. This suggests the story was circulating orally by the 1960s and possibly earlier, though it likely hadn't appeared in print before folklorist Carlos Drake documented it in 1968. This legend spread widely via word of mouth and cautionary tales, but the early 1980s it hit mainstream awareness when advice columnist Ann Landers published a reader's letter retelling the gas station version, warning readers to check your back seat before you get into your car. The Ann Landers piece in July 1982 helped spread the word to millions, cementing the story's status. Throughout the 80s and 90s, the tale persisted, often as a secondhand story. It happened to a friend of mine. We love to see it. In the late 90s, it morphed into an email chain letter and online warning. A typical 1990s email chain version claimed gang members were hiding in women's cars at gas pumps as part of initiations, urging readers to always lock your car and check the back before getting in. So that's like a morphed version of what I heard. Police bulletins and faxed alerts echoed those details, even though incidences were unverified. Love that. Love when the police put out official warnings for something that just isn't happening, or at least like is entirely unverified. It happened to a friend of ours. The legend was retold by Alvin Schwartz in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark in 1981 for young readers under the title High Beams. Folklorist Jan Harold Brunvand also included it in his urban legend collections and encyclopedia, helping legitimize it as part of American folklore. The opening scene of the movie Urban Legend 1998. It's where I saw it in which a college girl is killed by the backseat killer despite a gas station attendant's attempt to warn her. An earlier example appears in the anthology film Nightmares 1983. The segment Terror in Topanga features an escaped killer hiding in a woman's car at a gas station, a clear nod to the story, and a 1998 episode of Millennium, The Pest House, also recreates a scenario. A mental patient sneaks into a doctor's backseat and a frantic gas station clerk intervenes just in time. Dude, I love this. I love that you see the lineage and the morphing, or, these sort of different retellings of the story and how it warps over time. This urban legend resonates in the late 20th century because it reflects rising anxieties of the era, the vulnerability of individuals, especially women, in everyday situations like driving, and the fear of random violent crime. As women began driving alone and societal awareness of serial killers grew in the 1960s and 70s, thanks a lot, Charles. A story about a female driver narrowly escaping a hidden murderer struck a chord. Notably, the tale often casts a man as either the savior or the threat, highlighting gender tropes. The pursuer, a truck driver, cop, or rough-looking gas attendant, is usually someone the woman initially fears only to find out was the Good Samaritan. This carries an implicit moral about not judging strangers by appearance, a social commentary wrapped in horror. At the same time, the legend underscores a more direct warning: stay alert to hidden dangers. As one analysis notes, at its core, this is a cautionary tale warning us to be vigilant of our surroundings, even in places as familiar as our own car. The story also contains a dose of mid-century sexism. The woman is portrayed as an obvious potential victim in need of rescue, while male figures drive the action as either predator or protector. Over time, tellers and audiences became aware of these stereotypes, but the basic scenario, a lurking menace in someone's personal space, remained universally frightening. That is a fucking universally frightening thing. Which then just sparks the whole, then we need to do an episode on frogging and all of that. And I was recently watching, Wendigoon did a video on, I think it's called The Killer in the Walls. Let me check that, because that is fucking terrifying. The killer who lived in the walls. Basically, these girls play with a Ouija board, so they think that the noises and stuff they're hearing might be a haunting, but it's actually this fucking dude living in the walls, and he ends up killing them and stuff. I mean, I was gonna say, hey, no spoilers, go check it out, but that's a very small part of the story. You should go watch that. Really spooky story. The killer in the backseat legend endures because it taps into primal fears of being attacked when you feel safe and being unaware of a threat literally right behind you. Especially in a car, you feel there is a sense of safety in a car, particularly think if you're just cruising along by yourself. You don't really feel threatened or scared of anything. Cool, now there's something in the back seat. Terrifying. Yeah, it plays on the everyday habit of driving alone, something most people do without a second thought, and turns it into a nightmare scenario. And that's what we're in need of. That's what we're really short of in our day-to-day right now, is taking the small number of spaces that we feel our most safe, and turning them against us, creating a scenario in which that once safe space is now not. And it's ruined, and they're coming for you, and they're already there, and you're dead. Modern variations and evolutions in the digital age, this legend continues to evolve. In the 1990s and 2000s, email and social media posts gave the tale new life with twists on the scenario. One variant involves a creepy doll left on the road to make a driver stop. When the driver gets out to move the doll, a criminal slips into the back seat. Never get out. Never get out, particularly if you see a creepy doll. I was also thinking there, how many horror movies have been someone's pretended to be broken. Oh, I'm broken down on the side of the road, help. And then they get got there. But then you also do want to help people. Yeah, it's a fine line. It's fun. In Halloween, maybe just don't. At the spookiest time of the year, maybe you just sort of I'll call RACQ for you. as you drive past. Another modern twist adds a paranormal element. A woman is chased at high speed by a wild-eyed figure on foot who slaps at her car at stoplights. She escapes to a police station, only for officers to find a corpse-like figure in her back seat. The maniac chasing her was actually the ghost of a previous victim trying to warn her. On the lighter side, a reverse telling the person hiding in the car turned out to be the woman's boyfriend planning to propose, complete with ring and flowers, which almost nobody thinks is a good idea for a surprise. I agree with that. Yeah. Particularly given this urban legend, Hey, will you marry me? And when are you going to do that? While they're driving? Cool, car crash, we're both dead. I like this. The legend has also been adapted for the age of keycard gas pumps. Now the helpful attendant might use the station loudspeaker to shout a warning instead of luring the driver inside. There's a killer in the backseat. Like what? Some shit like, radio music playing or whatever, blaring while you're filling up your thing and then, oh my God, there's a killer in the backseat. That's so stupid. That's so stupid. Memetically, the phrase check the back seat is a common joke in safety tips, and the story structure has been referenced in countless internet horror threads. Despite technology like rear view cameras and automatic locks, the tale still finds purchase because it ultimately speaks to a timeless fear that someone could be hiding just out of sight. The other one, because we're talking about, the killer in the back seat, one that's also closely related to this in a way, I guess, because it's car related. That's my thread. This next car related urban legend is the hook-handed killer, or the hook man. And I have notes on this, but I also have this story or this urban legend about Rock-A-Dundee Road. I'm just going to read it. Tucked away in the small western Massachusetts town of Hampton is the infamous Rock-A-Dundee Road. The narrow, partially unpaved road winds through the woods across the state border to Connecticut. I grew up hearing all kinds of stories about the road. In fact, my mum heard them when she was growing up as well. It's a common practice around here to take a drive up Rock-A-Dundee Road in the dark with your friends, especially around Halloween. In the late 1960s, two passengers had parked their car on the side of Rock-A-Dundee Road to find a place away from the prying eyes of their parents to make out. That's a tale as old as time. A tale as old as time and a horror film setting as old as time. So many. My brain just got flooded with like a million horror movies. I have that exact scenario. Anyway, later when they attempted to start the vehicle, they discovered they were having engine trouble. And this is the problem, like when you're younger, and this was someone who grew up with a real fucking rinky-dink, super unreliable car. You never want to go, I'm saying, hey, you never want to go to a place that's like out of the way and spooky and stuff like that. And now I'm thinking like, I did that all the time. I did that all the time in this shitbox car. The boyfriend decided he would walk into town for help and told his girlfriend to stay in the car and wait for him, not get out under any circumstances until he returned. So the girlfriend sat and waited. No, that's cool. You mean we're walking back into town? Dude, I'm fat as shit, and I'm not going to make that walk back to town. I'm still coming with you. I'm going to sit in this car alone on the side of the road, this pitch black Rock-A-Dundee Road by myself, this winding, partially unpaved fucking thing that winds through the woods out of your goddamn mind? At one point, she heard scratching sounds on the roof of the car, but dismissed them as low-hanging branches waving in the wind since the car was parked under a tree. Eventually, she fell asleep, but was jolted out of her slumber by a police officer knocking on the car window. As the officer escorted her from the car to his cruiser, he warned her not to look back. She did not heed his warning and glanced back to discover a horrifying scene. Her boyfriend was hanging from a tree branch with his toes barely scraping the roof of the vehicle. Oh, chills. Okay. I'm home alone right now, doing my checks. Okay. Someone just walks in behind me. Okay, let's not. It's like 10 a.m. I'm freaking myself out. Okay, shut up and let's continue. Then in the early 90s, a young boy was struck by a bus and killed on the road. They built a gazebo in his memory, and his ghost is said to be tied to that area. People claim they've seen full body apparitions and hear him laughing and playing. One person even claimed to have been scratched on the face by the young boy's spirit. Fucking little bastard. Ow, you fucking little bastard ghost. There is also said to be a witch who wields a hatchet and chases a motorist out of the area. I've even heard stories of numerous teenagers hanging themselves in the trees, all right in a row. Mob activity, phantom trucks, and bizarre behavior from dogs. Too many things. You know what I mean? Like, the Bunny Man one, that's good. One man dressed up like a bunny with an axe. What does he do? He goes killing. This one, too many things. You know, the first story, ooh, spooky, terrifying. Then a boy bus ghost, an axe wielding witch. Okay. Phantom trucks. Strange dog behavior. Okay, guys. The story of the murdered boyfriend is a variation on the ever so popular Hook Man urban legend. The first known written account of this legend was in a Dear Abby column in 1960. So this is like, we're starting to realize that a lot of the origins, apparently, of urban legends seem to be ARGs taking place in advice columnists' newspaper segments. You know what I mean? However, one likely source of the legend is the real-life Texarkana Moonlight Murders in 1946. Texarkana? I feel like I've only ever heard that pronounced Texarkana. Texarkana Moonlight Murders in 1946. The series of unsolved murders and attacks by an unidentified serial killer sent the small town of Texarkana, Texas, into a state of panic. Just like the legend, the first attack happened to a couple parked on Lover's Lane. They're going to have to rename Lover's Lane. With the amount of people that get killed on Lover's Lane, it's now Killer's Lane. All right? And now we don't go to it because the title has been adjusted appropriately. Thank you. They survived the brutal assault, but the next couple wasn't so lucky. 2 double murders followed this first attack. Then the killer struck one more time, shooting another couple, this time in their home. The husband was killed instantly, but the wife survived. These unsolved Texarkana murders have been immortalized in the 1976 slasher film, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which the town actually screens every Halloween. Dude, I love that so much. Imagine this event happens in your town, or even just like an urban legend of an event happens in your town. And then every year, on Halloween, they screen the movie about that event / urban legend. I like that a lot. Another film with the same name, based around the same murders, was released in 2014, although it's not quite a remake or a sequel. There are other real-life examples of Lover's Lane slaying that I'm sure helped add fuel to the legend, including the Zodiac Killer in the 60s and 70s. The urban legend has grown into several different versions and been featured in several movies and an episode of Supernatural. Never watched Supernatural. So the earliest known version, this legend traced back to at least the mid-1950s in the United States. It entered public consciousness when it appeared in print on November 8, 1960, in the popular advice column Dear Abby. In that Dear Abby letter, a concerned teen recounted a Hook Band story and noted, quote, "I don't know whether it's true or not, but it doesn't matter because it served its purpose for me. I don't think I'll ever park to make out as long as I live." The earliest known published reference is that Dear Abby column, but by then it was probably a well-known whisper among high schoolers. Some researchers suggest that a real string of crimes, the 1946 Texarkana Moonlight Murders by an unidentified phantom killer who attacked couples in parked cars, might have seeded the idea of cautionary tales for necking teens. The Texarkana killer didn't have a hook, but the fear he generated in lovers' lanes across the country could have been easily embellished into the hook-handed boogeyman in teen lore. By the 1960s, the hook was a staple of the American urban legendary, passed from teen to teen with the knowing tone of, "This could happen to you." The version that I heard of the hook man or the hook-handed killer was a young couple parked at night on Lover's Lane when a murderous man with a hook for a hand attacks or nearly attacks them. Often it begins with a radio announcement about an escaped lunatic with a hook hand in the vicinity. In the most popular ending, the couple drives off just in time, later discovering a bloody hook hanging from the car door handle, a chilling sign of how close they came to disaster. In other variants, the boyfriend steps out of the car and never returns. This is the one that I always heard, only for the girl to find him mutilated, sometimes his fingers or head scraping on the roof of the car. That's always the one that I heard, was the Rock-A-Dundee Road version, where not that they broke down. I can't remember why the boyfriend, got out of the car or went missing, but it always ended with the police showing up, the scraping sounds, and then the police being like, hey, come with us, or hey, get out of the car and like walk this way, don't look back. And when they did, it was always like the killer on the roof of the car with like the boyfriend's head, or like with a hook, or, something like that. The hook legend sprang up in a very specific social climate, 1950s America, and it reflects the context strongly. This was an era preoccupied with youth morality and sexual propriety. Teenagers with cars had new freedom to seek privacy, the infamous Lover's Lane, and that made adults anxious. The Hookman tale very much serves as a morality tale warning youth about the dangers of parking and necking. As one commentator Riley noted, it seems designed to frighten the insatiable teenage libido, hoping that fear would secede where curfews and lectures failed. The imagery is not suitable. A killer with a penetrating hook targeting amorous teens practically screams Freudian caution. Some analyses even interpret the ripping of the hook as a symbolic castration or punishment for the boy's sexual intent. The legend was often repeated by parents, teachers, or clergy to scare kids straight. In that sense, it functioned like earlier folktales that warned against premarital sex or disobeying parents, just updated to the automobile age. Wow. Hey, 1950s parents, teenagers, and clergymen, doesn't that seem like a tale that's kind of ahead of its time to be telling people is like a true thing that would happen? And in a time where it's not like we can jump on the internet and fucking be like, hey, is this real? It's all just word of mouth. Dude. Kind of great. Kind of great. Beyond the sexual morality aspect, the hook also tapped into a post-war fear of the other. An escaped madman from an institution, mental hospitals, and prisons were common boogeyman sources in mid-century, threatening the peace of small-town life. In a time when America was relatively safe and prosperous, these stories gave form to more abstract fears, juvenile delinquency, breakdown of social order, or even concerns about increasing mental illness in society. By the 60s and 70s, as horror media grew, the story lost some of its overt, keep your pants on message and was told more for thrills. But even then, it carried an implicit lesson about personal safety. Don't isolate yourself in a remote spot and be aware of your surroundings. That's the fucking take home of today. Be aware of your surroundings, even when you're in a place that you feel the safest. He says, at home alone. And like, that's the moment when the killer would have struck. So I think we're good now. I did do a check back because I was aware of how great of a time that would have been to sort of commit the attack. So killer thwarted. Don't say it. Just egging him on, James. From a psychological perspective, the hook endures because it perfectly targets the mindset of its primary audience, teenagers on the cusp of adult freedoms. It's often the first scary story young people hear that feels like it could happen to them in the real world. The scenario being in a secluded spot with someone and a lethal threat emerges is the stuff of universal nightmares. It comes from the fear of physical mutilation. Obviously, I still have that fear. With the fear of being caught, both by the killer and symbolically by parents or society. There's also a strong element of anticipation. The story builds tension with scraping sounds, radio announcements, shadows in the woods. It's an exercise in dread where the audience knows something bad is going to happen, but not exactly when or how. Over time, the hook legend hasn't needed too much updating. Yeah, not like the fucking, what was the other one? Dole on the road. It's timelessly set one night in a car at Lover's Lane. However, modern storytellers have put new spins on it and merged it with other urban legends. For instance, some versions overlap with the killer in the back seat. The tie-in. Thank you. By having the hookman hiding in the back seat instead of attacking outside. In one variant, a couple hears noises, driving off, later finds not just a hook on the door, but scratch marks all over the car, suggesting the hookman was literally clinging to the roof or trunk as they fled. Another gruesome twist that circulates, the girl in the car hears dripping on the roof. That's also a version that I've heard. And when the police escort her out, she discovers it was her boyfriend's blood dripping after the hookman strung him up in a tree. That's a very popular one. I've heard that one a lot. Elements of the story do occasionally echo in real crime reports. Couples are sometimes targeted by robbers or worse in parked cars, and there have been criminals with missing limbs, though none of them with a hook for a hand specifically. The lack of a single hook-handed killer doesn't stop the legend from occasionally being taken as true by each new generation until they learn otherwise. Yeah, or until they're fucking on Lover's Lane and they get like, what's that dripping sound? A key in the ignition, we're leaving. But as the cultural phenomenon, it did inspire real actions. For example, some communities put extra patrols at Lover's Lane when hookman rumors spiked, and many teens decided to call it a night early because the story was scratching at the back of their mind. Yeah. I'll tell you what, 1950s James would have been macking down at Lover's Lane. And he would have heard a single snapped twig from the bushes. And that'd be it for me, you know. And first of all, door's already locked. All right, let's be smart about this. Even if your car auto locks, your first port of call when getting in, get in, door closed, lock door. Done. I forgot my own rule. You fool, James. Before getting in car, glance in back seat. I forgot. That was me right there. I just fully envisioned my death in that moment. Because I forgot the simple rules that we've been learning today, right? About being hypervigilant in spaces that we feel the most safe. Step number 1, glance in the back seat. Clear, yes, get in, close door, lock door. Before anything else. Now we can proceed. Just my little PSA for you there. And that is going to do it for this one. I'll leave you with a little nugget of information that will, and I can safely say this, save your life. This podcast episode today has saved lives. And I appreciate you coming and hanging out. But if you've got any weird but wonderful stories, articles, news snippets, findings, urban legends of your own, shoot me an email, oneweirdpodcast@gmail.com. I want to hear about it. I want your weird stories. I want your strange interactions. Or even if you find weird articles and stuff, send them to me. Absolutely. And if you want to keep up to date with me, you can find me at my pixel persona on Instagram and TikTok. For the show, at One Weird Podcast on Instagram and TikTok as well. Subscribe to the podcast. Get yourself the video version of the show each week, youtube.com/@weirdbutwonderful. Or the new way to do it, getweird.org. Type that in and that will take you to the YouTube channel. That's right. Yeah, I was on Cloudflare the other day. Just peeping domains. Decided to get that one. Chuck a rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. It really helps people like you find the show. It helps us grow this thing that we're doing here. And on YouTube, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. I have other urban legend tales that I would like to tell. I also have a ghost encounters episode that I'm thinking about doing as well, in which I would tell my personal encounter with a ghost. It's come up a few times over the years, I think, on the podcast and sort of just talking into the internet about a house that I lived in and the very strange goings on there that multiple people experienced. And I did see something. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I have an explanation for it. I still don't know. I could have just been really tired, to be honest. No, I still don't know. And yeah, that would also be something that I would tell in that, because I've got, people's sort of stories on Reddit and stuff, their encounters with ghosts, but then I also have my personal experience, a couple of things, there was an overall sense of feeling like you were being watched. I'll say this really quickly. In this house, and I've never had this living anywhere else in my life, a constant sense of feeling like you're being watched. But one thing that would happen all the time is I would always see shadows moving out of the corner of my eye all the time. And everyone else who lived there have these same, stories. My sister, her partner, Sam, I don't know if my parents do. I don't know if we've ever asked them. Guests and things like that have had similar experiences. Never had that anywhere else. But anyway, we won't talk about that now. Let me know if you want the ghost episode. We'll absolutely do that. But thank you so much for coming and hanging out. I appreciate you. This has been episode 98. You should come back for episode 99. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Oh, wait. And don't forget to check the back seat. Is that good? Seriously, though, check it.